Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Seams and Downs, where I'm your host, Doc Metter, and tonight we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. This has to deal with an injury. But before we get there, I hope you all are doing well. I've had an opportunity to experience a week off from any kind of recordings or things of that nature, but don't worry, I've been proactive. Having gone through and done some things on the outside, not so much with the recording aspect of things, trying to get some things scheduled. But neither here nor there. It has been a very productive week, although I have not had any record time. But that all changes tonight because we're back in the saddle. We're going to get things going again, and here we are. We're going to start making as down here in my neck of the woods. Hopefully, they're money moves, right? It could be it's a poor attempt at humor, but if it's money, it jingles, right? But again, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. Of course, as listeners and followers of Seams and Downs podcast, one of the things that I'm hoping that you guys have picked up on is that I follow my kids around while they play sports, and so we're in summertime football over here at Bartlett High School, and one of the things that I noticed on Thursday was my son coming home limping. And it was a substantial limp. He actually had to stop playing because he rolled his ankle. So immediately, as a father, you become a little curious. And you go back into not a scared mode, but like, okay, well, what do we do in this situation? So I go back to my military days where we rice it out, right? And I'll talk about rice here in a moment. Well, we rice this stuff out. Before we get to that, though, first thing is you want to make sure your kid's okay. And, of course, asking Ben, hey, dude, are you all right? Because the kid his ankle was pretty swollen. It was really swollen. He could still walk on it. So, the first thing was just trying to triage it right here in the kitchen of the house. You're kind of like, okay, well, nothing's broken. There's you can put some weight on it. There's no bones protruding. There's no blood anywhere. So that's just checking the boxes, right? You're like, okay, well, this is all right. And then you're like, okay, well, you got some. Do we need to schedule a doctor's appointment right now, or is this a wait and see type situation? What do we need to do? And of course, Christine and myself were kind of looking at each other like, it's not too terribly bad. He may wince in pain. He can't really walk on it, but neither here nor there. Thursday was pretty eventful. Friday morning, I will tell you that we woke up and the kid, even at 6:30 in the morning, I'm sitting over thinking like, okay, well, just to show up and be that guy, right? Just hang out on the sideline in some crutches, but be there for your teammates. That's the initial thought. The kid could not put any weight on it at all come Friday morning. Now, oddly enough, here we are on a Sunday, and he's much better. However, he's still having difficulty really moving some things around. So after that period of time, did a little research, obviously went to Google. For those listeners that are the Chat GPT, experts out there, maybe there's something that and you're using Chat GPT. I know I've used Chat GPT for just what I should do essentially. As an example, in my last episode with an infection that I had, it was like, okay, yeah, you probably need to go see the doctor, and they need to prescribe you some antibiotics. It's simple stuff, right? But what's so interesting is that Ben, his ankle was just so swollen. So I talked about the rice method. One of the first thing is, okay, sit down. Let's get you some rest. I was doing some research And what's so interesting, I keep on saying what's so interesting because this is a real passionate subject for me, right? It's your kid, your sports, you want to see them successful, but this is really interesting stuff. It really truly is. Out of all the websites that I went to regarding youth sports injuries around football, or just youth sports injuries in and of itself, they have like 5 top injuries, or there's five top, the most seen injuries, I should say. One of those being ankle injuries, sprains. But I've also come across sources all the way from VCU to Stanford to the American Pediatric. It's like the American Pediatric Society, or American the like Care for the American Pediatric Group, or something to that effect. But the way in which the information has been displayed, you've got things that you see some similarity in what they're saying, and then you see stark contrasting differences. As an example, I went to a site and it said the most common injury is overuse. And so as I was looking at it, I was like, okay, is that overuse as in, overuse as in you've already got an injury and you're just simply going too far and you're doing more? Or is that just overuse of your ankles, or overuse of your brain, or whatever? That's, again, another poor attempt at humor, but some of you out there, you may be overusing your brain. And some of you are cooked. But in all seriousness, with the varying degree in the information, overuse to me is I would never think to overuse it. I would think that, okay, you've got an underlying issue, ankle sprain, and if you go back before time, or before it's appropriately healed, it's not going to heal back properly. And in that instance, that I would consider that overuse. But again, still a lot of questions in reference to that, and so hopefully tonight we're going to get to that. But at any rate, we're on for the next 30 minutes, and we're going to have a good time. I know I am. I hope you are. So sit back and just let's listen. We're going to share some screens. I'm going to show you some interesting things that I came across as far as researching the 5 most common sports injuries. We're going to jump into VCU, but let me get back to Ben real quick before we jump off and move to the point of no return real quick. So we've scheduled an appointment. Ben is going to go see an orthopedic Monday. And we're going to get him out there to the doctor, let them take a look at it as an abundance of precaution. The kid can move around. He can put a little bit of weight on it now. One of the sites that I went to indicated that an ankle injury could last anywhere from 10 to 14 days, and that's just solid rest. But I can tell you I'm proud of Ben. And the reason why I'm proud of Ben is because on Friday morning, when he woke up and he realized that his ankle was so swollen, one of the very first things that he did was, Mom, we've got to call coach. And so we couldn't call the coach. He had to call the coach. They're now of age to where Mom and Dad can't do it. If you're hurt, broke, injured, whatever, what have you, you as a player are in a situation or a position to call the coach and let them know what's going on, and keep that communication going. And so Ben did. Ben called. He called his coach and said, "Coach, my ankle injury from yesterday, it's really, really swollen. I can't put any weight on it. We're going to continue the Rice method, and that Rice method is in fact the rest, the ice, the compression, and the elevation of it. So Rice, 4 letters, RICE, rest, ice, compression, and elevation." And the kid's done that for the past 3 days. And so for 3 days, a solid 72 hours, we've had alternated between That, and we've also alternated with ibuprofen. And so plenty of rest, ibuprofen, hydration, ice, compression. These things have worked out tremendously. Only reason why we're going at this point is because he's still limping, but the swelling has gone down. But we want to make sure that nothing is torn. There's graphics that are out there. You can talk about ankle injuries, and so you might have tears and things of that nature. Tendons might tear, whatever have you, ligaments, figaments, whatever you want to call them. These things tear, and so we just want to make sure that nothing's out of the ordinary. Don't you worry, folks. I've already been in the background already on Amazon trying to determine, okay, I've got a teenage football player. What type of things do we need to get him to make sure that he's not rolling his ankles? As a lineman, I'm definitely concerned about that. Do we need to tape him up like we would tape him up for a game right before going into practice? No, obviously not. But making sure that he's got ankle socks that are add a little more support than just I would say just ankle high socks or something like that. Looking at the cleats, are the cleats high top cleats to where it adds a little extra support around those ankles. That's something that we're actually looking into. But it's just, I have to tell you, I've learned a lot this weekend just browsing through this vast amount of information that's out there on the web. Because some of it's like anything else. You hear stuff, you question whether or not you need to believe it. You look at the source, you look at the valid points that are behind it. But let's show you this real quick. So looking at the 5 common sports injuries according to the VCU. So with this VCU, notice here that this is all, March 12th, 2024. But let's talk about these right here. Not numbered, but they obviously have, and there's overuse again, like overuse is down here. Not numbered, but certainly out here as a header. Talking about the ACL tears, giving you a little bit of information. But what I like about this is the time frame that it talks about healing. Okay, with ACL tears, anywhere from 6 to 9 months. That's a whole school year in high school. That could be detrimental. So, but obviously you want something you want to be careful of. And if you have watching it and just being mindful of what this is, the connection of that femur and the tibia and the ACL that connects that, it's still something worth just being mindful of. Okay. And so we're not there, but we're looking at ankle sprains coming in at number 2. And that's exactly what he did. He talked about, I rolled my foot the wrong way. I rolled it onto its side. And the ligaments that support that ankle are either stretched or they could potentially tear, which is why we're in the situation that we're in. We've got to address whether or not, this kid has torn any kind of ligaments down in his ankle. Like I said, the swelling's gone down. He can move around, but he's still hobbling like old Hobbalong. Okay, he's not 100%. But I was looking at this, and as I was looking at the ankle sprain, the first thing that I saw was, oh my goodness, 4 to 6 weeks. Don't know that Ben's going to be out for that long, but certainly, we are watching it. We are going to, see the doctor tomorrow. The doctor's going to, provide us a little more information as to what we can, what type of a treatment plan or what type of, how he can appropriately heal, and us keep it moving with him playing ball. again, like I said, so he's not in severe pain as it shows over here on the VCU site. But at any rate, again, just to ensure, I guess a safety blanket, just to give us the warm and fuzzies as his parents, an idea that the kid's not, there's nothing serious about it. Broken bones, growth plate injuries. The growth plate injuries are something that I've also been aware of and certainly looking at. Broken bones are also a big factor, according to VCU, and that's another thing that we're hoping to work with the orthopedic doctor tomorrow, just to hopefully they won't require a lot of X-rays or anything, or keep us there for a very long time. We are just simply hoping that it's going to be a walk-in. Oh, okay, this is what you need to do. Oh, that's great. You were doing the rice method. Continue to do the rice and kind of push forward. But here's what I do like. So under the pediatric, that's what it is, the pediatric specialist of Pendleton. Also, when you're looking at these websites and things of that nature, and I'll provide links inside of our YouTube video, but notice, look at the dates on when some of this information was published. I typically try, if it hasn't been updated, down here, if you look at it again, the website was copyrighted in 2010, and then of course it talks about the updates as far as the feed in it, as well as article information and when it was last modified. This has been modified within 3 years. Or just shy, just over 3 years, and so that's a good thing. If it's updated for about 3 years or every 3 years, then you can. It's safe to say that somebody's actually keeping up with it and watching it. So there's a little return there. But as far as football, I did not. Who knew about this? Did any of you guys know about this? Because I find it very, very just wild. Common injuries, ankle injuries, starting out, ankle injuries. Then there's finger injuries, the knee injuries, shoulder injuries, eye injuries, low back pain, head injuries. And then, of course, I love the little remember piece. Football injuries can be prevented when fair play is encouraged and the rules of the game are enforced. As I was reading through this, that really caught my attention as the remember, or the reminder, I should say. I was like, oh, we actually have to put that out there. So, good on you, Pendleton, for doing this. Again, we'll provide links. But just go through here. It talks about some of this stuff. It actually talks about, I love the fact that they start off with supervision. Athletes should be supervised and have easy access. Okay? Again, we've talked about the heat out here. It is hot. We've got some excessive heat warnings that are going on, and things are moving. We're also getting very, very close to the start of school, and we're getting really, really close to the start of the football season. So things are starting to, really, really move fast for these players. Just looking at the equipment, what this stuff does, I love the fact that the pediatric groups really jumped in on this. And of course, they mentioned, have your mouth guard. I've talked about mouth guards before. Look, always have an extra mouth guard. Always, always, always have an extra mouth guard. If you buy one, just go ahead and I'd make the recommendation, go ahead and buy 3. If you're buying one, go ahead and buy 3. You always want to have a mouth guard. You want to have an extra. Because if you don't have it, you don't have it, and of course, that can be damaged. Those teeth can be damaged, and of course, you damage your teeth, you're going to damage the interior of your mouth, so on and so forth. So, pretty crazy things there. We talked about the rice method, even in the pediatric world right here. It talks about the rice method: the rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And it talks about the seeing the doctor if it's real sharp pain. Things of that nature. They can't put any weight on it. They can't walk on it. Then obviously going an additional step and going ahead and reaching out and seeing that doctor. But again, that's what we did with the rice method. That worked for Benno. As a matter of fact, he's actually in the other room right now with an ice pack on, and of course he's got that leg elevated. So he has enjoyed sitting on his beanbag watching movies. I mean, we've had some good times even while he's been injured. We had an opportunity to watch Happy Gilmore 2. Plug for Happy Gilmore 2. If you haven't seen it, go out to Netflix, check it out. It's worth, yeah, for me, growing up in that, well, not growing up in that world, but having been exposed as a teenager in the Happy Gilmore days, it's always worth going and being able to relive that just slightly with your teenage son at this point. So and he gets a version of that. One thing I will say about the jammed fingers or the finger injuries, as a lineman, Ben is already starting to learn the power of tape on those fingers. And he's actually learning to do that. He's not so much doing it at practice, but he is certainly doing it, or he has done it, just to get used to, taping his fingers up, so he's got that stability there. So it would prevent, the jamming of his fingers or causing additional, just issues with his hands. He has looked into that. We haven't gotten into knee braces and things for the, at this age at 14. But again, there are some big boys that are out there, and, something that we're mindful of, absolutely mindful of. And it has not gone anywhere. So, getting reacclimated and really focusing on the medical aspect of things. I know I've learned a lot. I'm hoping that, I think my family's learned a lot because we talk about this stuff and we've communicated across the board. But at any rate, we're, really and truly just blessed that, at least he's moving around, and we're just happy that he's moving around, and we've got an opportunity to go tomorrow and see the doctor. I never thought about the lower back pain. But again, obviously, these are factors that's been seen or have been reported, and of course, this pediatric group has seen these things or again have heard these things from the pediatric community as far the injuries that come in with football. Head injuries, obviously, something that we're all worried about and we all monitor very, very closely. It's if you look into the head injury aspect of things, you see more about concussion protocol, signs, symptoms of a concussion, having had one out there on the field, whatever, what have you. So all good information across the board, but when you look at some of these, there it is, American Academy of Pediatrics. That's what it was, the American Academy of Pediatrics. Some of these things, again, get out there and research these sites. Know what's out there, folks. Bookmark them. You can go in and you can, bookmark these things. That way you know where to go. Sign up for e-alerts. You can even go into things like Google, and on Google, just simply go, look, I've already got, this is it. What's the main source of youth sports injuries? So the main source, just simply, with the help of AI here, here's where it says, is overuse. This is what kind of threw me off a little earlier as I was just kind of going in and taking a peep at it. Overuse, often due to repetitive motions and training without adequate rest. So, again, a lot of, hey, Doc's got a lot of questions about that. Okay, well, is overuse, does that mean that somebody's healthy and going out there and going over repetitive motions, or has somebody had a pre-existing injury or a prior injury? Look, some of you guys are word sticklers, and so I word salad some of this stuff, so just bear with me. But again, were they already injured and they're going out there, and of course they didn't have the appropriate rest? The training aspect, I do understand about that. If you're if you're not taking and you're not teaching the fundamentals for a player to be safe, then yes, it's going to lead to injury. Yes, absolutely agreed there. And I firmly understand that. But, again, some of the verbiage here, it's open to interpretation. Again, it talks about the overuse, repetitive stress, growth plates, inadequate rest. The second being right here, sprains and strains, sudden movements, falls, improper warm-up. Check that out, improper warm-up. Yes, make muscles and joints more vulnerable to injury. So, players that are out there that are listening to this, make sure that you're taking your warm-ups seriously. I get it. You may not want to do it. I promise you may not want to do it. You may think that you're just good to go. You can just get in there and do it. But make sure you're taking that stuff seriously. That way you're in a situation to keep your body healthy. Again, other things that contribute to injuries that are out there: improper equipment, poor technique, lack of physical conditioning, and of course other environmental factors. So check this out. As we're looking at all this actually was published on May 13th of this year. Again, prevalent in youth ages 8 through 14. But there's an alarming rise. Sure, that may be a little bit of baseball. But check this out. It's starting to be used more and more frequently, folks. Overuse injuries. Something that I never really thought about, but is clearly a common theme around the medical world. Now, I'm not giving you any medical advice. I am not giving you, I am by no means, am I that type of a doctor? No, I am not. I am not a medical doctor. But still, at any rate, stuff that we need to be very, very mindful of. Check out the verbiage right here. Notice in the second paragraph, up to 54% of all youth sports activities. Overuse injuries, up to 54% of all youth sports injuries. Absolutely wild. Just fascinating. Check this out. More than 3.5 million children under the age of 18 are treated for sports-related injuries every year. Who knew? My son's one of those. I mean, tomorrow we're going to the doctor. Here we go. 3.5 million children under the age of 14 are treated for sports-related injuries every year. Sports now ranks the second leading cause of emergency room visits among the youth. Folks, you can come read this stuff for yourself. Again, I'm going to provide these links that are out here. I'll put them on our show. But you guys keep up on this stuff. Know these things and just watch your kid. Be in a situation. I've always told my son, listen to your body. If you're feeling something different, if you are feeling something different after you've done a play, listen to what your body says. If there's sharp pains, dull pains, this or that, listen to your body and say something. I do think that that's pretty powerful, but I think if I'm telling my kid that, I know that other folks are telling their kids that. At least I would hope that that's being communicated. So yeah, you guys check this stuff out. It's out here. It's worthy of this. I love the global education piece right here from Adtalem. The letting the kids be kids and athletes. I think that's just extremely powerful. Okay. Notice the quote there. Driving the kids to compete before they've had time to grow. System needs to value recovery, variety, and health just as much as it values competition. I think those are incredibly, incredibly wise words. I've talked to Ben. I know that playing football is important for him, but I also want him to heal. I also want to make sure that he understands and he's got, family that supports the fact that he needs to heal. Hopefully he heals quickly because the season's starting up quick. But I do think that, while a sprain, and I'm telling you guys, if you guys had seen, I may have an image of how swollen it was. But at any rate, what I do believe is that having him go back and try to practice on it, within a week, it's still something that I don't have a definite answer on. And I don't know if there's a proper solution other than we've got to talk to the doctor and just let the doctor, make the determination or provide that, treatment plan to ensure that, Ben's ankle is, safe and appropriate. Maybe some of these doctors actually have some of the equipment that we need. Like I said, I've been on Amazon, folks. I've been looking up these compression socks that are actually lace-up compression socks. And I've even told Ben, I said, you're not just going to get one. You're going to wear two of them. You got 2 ankles. You got 2 feet. You're going to get 2 compression socks. I think the kid thinks that I'm probably a little overbearing when it comes to this stuff, but safety does come first. I will say that. You're in a very, very hard-hitting sport, and we've got to make sure that, you are taken care of from a safety standpoint while you play a team sport. So interesting stuff to say that. So look, folks, you make sure that you're going out here and you're checking this stuff out. If you got any questions about some of the sources that you're coming across, look, I get it. Some of these things are questionable. Some of these things are, do I really need to listen to them? So on and so forth. I think the fact that, we'll just talk about Adtalem real quick. The fact that they bring in the medical doctors, they use the quotes, they make this site. It is a secured site, so it's alive and well. It's something that I would listen to. Do you take it as it's not the Bible? Do you take it with a grain of salt? Yeah, it's relevant. Look, May 13th, 2025. This is less than a little over 2 months ago. That this has actually been published. So this is something that I would look at. And well, obviously and clearly I've shared the screen tonight, so I have been looking at it. But yeah, so, Google these things, just take a look at them, just be mindful of when some of this stuff was written. If you're looking for more current stuff, the VCU, I love VCU. This stuff is 2025. It's updated with their websites, even though the article itself was published in March of 2024. And of course, that's what I do, is just go in here and grab a host of different sources and just kind of look through them and read them. It took all of maybe an hour and a half this morning, and I spent some time Thursday evening. I spent some time on Friday just kind of trying to browsing through some things, asking Ben questions, what he was feeling, how he was feeling, so on and so forth, and of course kind of narrowed everything down, little triage. And then of course, like I said, we did the Rice method, and he seems to really be making a bounce back. But I do think that even if it's minor, because since we have not talked to the doctor yet, we don't know what's going on the inside, other than the fact that the swelling has gone down, and he's walking on it, limping around, but still walking. He's not 100%. So, folks, I hope you take this and go off and do something with it. Please, by all means, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, do not hesitate to reach out to Matt at seamsanddowns.com. I would love to chat with you. If you've got an injured player or you've had to deal with sports injuries, reach out to us. We want to know some more. We want to talk to you. That way we can get this information out. In a world where you've got websites that are as plenty, as abundant and as plenty as a world population. There's a lot of information out there, and it's almost one of those situations like, who do you go to trust? Well, you don't have to just go to one person. You can go to 50 different things, but you gotta narrow it down, and it's almost at an individualized or personalized treatment plan at this point. So, even with looking at the information that's out there, you're kind of like, okay, well, how does this, you got a lot of this information. It's nuggets of information here and nuggets of information there. But hopefully, by looking at a host of different sources, what you see is, in fact, a system of patterns, if you will. Okay, so you're looking at that system of patterns, and you're starting to make decisions or draw conclusions based on that for yourself. So Sunday evening, back at it. We're back in the saddle. We're back on the grind. We're back in the hot seat. Hope you all have a tremendous week. We will be back on. There are some things to look forward to in the future. I've got some irons in the fire. We're going to have a whole new programming segment. It's gonna be a 5-episode segment, and that's coming. I don't want to tell you too much because I know that you're going to get a lot of information out of it, folks. There's a lot of stuff that's going out there in the sports community, not in just youth sports alone. And it's worthy of one, your attention, my attention, but two, being able to share those stories. If you've got a coach that's in mind that you would like to highlight, do not hesitate to reach out. We want to highlight coaches. We've got their stories to try to publicize and share, and we want the world to know about this stuff. If you've got a rising athlete that you'd like to highlight, a coach, if coaches that are out there listening, if you've got an athlete on your team that's already, just knocking things dead, hitting grand slams left and right, has a great attitude, is doing things out in the community, let's get them on here and let's talk about it. We want to share those stories, we want to share those insights, and we want to make sure that you're getting an opportunity to sit on this pedestal and really, really shine. That's the whole purpose of all of this, is to make sure that these stories are told. That is my mission, and that is a mission that I have accepted and will do. So we want to build a community, and that community is with you. That being said, thank you all. We've actually grown in listenership. Folks, we are growing 1,000 listeners week over week. And so we have grown. It's going to continue to grow. Please continue to share this stuff. The platform's it's only going to get much sweeter with time. And of course, this is where I'm dedicated to do work. So that being said, thank you all very much for any of your support. If you would like to talking about episodes, things of interest that you feel the community might would like to hear, drop us a line. Matt@seamsanddowns.com. Folks, thank you all again very much for just spending time with me. Hope you learned a little bit something about sports injuries, particularly with football. Stay safe out there, folks. Stay hydrated. And again, listen, learn, but most importantly, be a good teammate. Thank you all very much.